from beginning.
Yeah, okay. So hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Ethereum, and one of the problems that Ethereum is facing today is about the unbounded growth of state size. And this is the proposed solution that the Ethereum Foundation and others are working on it. I'm going to share some concepts on that. So if the current situation of Ethereum is that the Ethereum 2 is starting to come in. So one of the stages was beacon chain, that's already in. And the next stage is the merge. The merge means the proof of work will be obsoleted and the proof of stake will take over. So that's expected to happen, let's say in Q2 2022. What is
unchecked on Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's work. Yeah. All right. And what we can do is we can do that. And then what we do is we go stop share, and we share screen too. Share. And then you can see the Zoom things up there. And then you're in business.
okay. Next. So I was talking about the merge is planned to happen in next year. And what after that? I see, or most of us see, that the next big challenge for Ethereum is to contain the state size, which is growing. And stateless Ethereum is the research effort to solve this problem. So this is the outline of my talk. I'm going to discuss about why we need this effort and what exactly is this stateless Ethereum. And the key thing in this stateless Ethereum effort is what we call it as witness. And I'm going to discuss what witness is in the current technology, which is Merkle-Patricia price, and what is it in the proposed technology. Okay, why? If you look at the Ethereum state, this was the number in July. So the state size is around 35 gigs, okay, just the plain state size. But if we look at the size in the representation that the Ethereum is following now, which is the Merkle-Patricia price, it's around 100 gigs. And this grows roughly by 50 gigs each year, or half of this amount every year. So what is the problem? And also if you look at the graph here, the number of addresses on Ethereum is just going on linearly. It's not plateauing or something. So this means that the network, that is the nodes on the network, have to bear the permanent ongoing costs, or they have to get their hard disk updated, or so. And also, if a new node is joining this network, it has this wall or a burden on to have this infrastructure to save this or store the state. This also hinders the true decentralization. Because of this burden, some people may not enter into this network at all, saying that I don't have to invest so much of infrastructure. Why should I do that? Maybe I'll rely on someone else. So centralized providers are always there. For a fee, they will provide the services, and eventually, this is like we are losing the promise of decentralization world. So hence, this is very critical to address this thing. And also, it's if we can make anybody with even resource constraint to join this network, that would be ideal. That would be very decentralized way. And also in Ethereum, let's say anybody can create a new address on this network, create 10 addresses, 100 addresses, and everybody in the network, all the nodes in the network are obligated to store the contents of these addresses forever. So it's not going to be a sustainable model. So stateless Ethereum is the proposed solution for this. Stateless does not mean here zero state. It means that bound the state of size of the state. And the goals are this: the bound the state size of the state, as well as enable participation from resource constrained devices. So there are multiple paths that this could take. One is called strong statelessness, which have denoted in the dashed lines, saying that it's not feasible. Strong statelessness meaning that nobody in the network or large numbers in the network, large number of nodes in the network don't maintain any state. They just maintain a state root. And every transaction that the user is providing the transaction needs to come with a witness saying that what part of the state is accessing. I'll explain more about witnesses, but for now, let's proceed with just the notion of witness. There is this path called weak statelessness, where the block producers or the miners is what we call the proof of work world, in the proof of stake world, let's say block producers, they maintain the state. And other nodes in the network need not maintain the state. Okay, so that's what is known as weak statelessness. There's another proposed path called state expiry, which I'm not going to talk here, but I have talked on this a month ago, I think, on Ethereum Engineering Meetup group. You can have a look at that. But for the purpose of our talk, it's enough to consider the weak statelessness model. Here, as I said, the block producers or miners will have full state. Okay. Let's say there are only a limited number of miners in the whole network. There are other participants. And other nodes are stateless. They don't contain any state. State here meaning, okay, let me define what the state is. For example, you have, in Ethereum, you have two kinds of addresses, externally owned account or a smart contract, right? In an externally owned account, you will have to maintain the balance of this account, the nonce. So this is the state. For a contract address, you need to maintain the balance and nonce, as well as the storage of the contract. It might have large number of storage, and the code of the contract. So this is the state of a contract. So imagine you're containing the state of all the contracts on the Ethereum and all the externally owned accounts. That's the whole state of the entire thing. So yeah, just to clarify that. So what this is saying is the block producers will have the state. So the transaction submitter or any node in the network need not have to have the state. They only maintain what is known as state root. So it is a great relief, because I with a, let's say, a mobile phone with not much disk space can enter into this by just being a node, not a block producer, but still being a node. Being a node, I can validate the blockchain. I can ascertain that the blockchain is going on in a correct way. So the user will submit a transaction. He'll not bother about witnesses. He might not have the state. And the block producers will add the state required to execute this transaction. That's called the witness. And a proof saying that the added state is not tampered. Yeah, let's go to the last point. Yeah, and the nodes, other nodes like the mobile connected nodes, can still validate, execute this transaction, and can update the state root. So these are the main things, and they all boil down to what we know as witness. So let's look at what's a witness. Let's look at different kinds of transactions that goes on Ethereum or any blockchain for that matter. Let's say an externally owned account A wants to send 5 Ether to externally owned account B. So what do we need to execute this transaction? We need the balance and nonce of A, and we need the balance of B. We just deduct 5 Ether from balance of A and increment 5 from balance of B. So this is the data needed to execute this transaction. So somebody has to provide this data, because the nodes in the network now don't maintain the state. The transaction have to come with this data. Let's say an externally owned account A calls a contract, smart contract function, get V. Let's say it's a getter function. And this needs, what are the data needed for this? Needs balance and nonce of A and the code of C to execute, code of C.getV, and the value of V, because getV returns the value of V. So again, if you look at all the other transactions, the blue box is, or let's look at the pink box, which is the previous yellow box was reading the value and now it's writing the value. The pink box, it's a setter function. In the blue box, we are adding a new element. That means we are creating a new storage location that was not there in the contract before. So these are, all the transactions can be grouped into these four fundamental things on Ethereum. So as we said, the nodes are not maintaining state, they don't have state, but they still want to execute this transaction. So the block producer will provide this data for every transaction and also provides a proof of integrity, saying that whatever data I have provided is tampered. I'm not tampered with it. So the blocks will be bulky now. Previously, blocks will just contain a sequence of transactions. Now it will have transaction, the data required for the transaction, the proof that the data is correct for every transaction. So we have bulky blocks. Being very heavy blocks is again a burden of the blockchain. So we need to be very careful in using the technology for computing these proofs. It has to be succinct. So that brings us to the technology of how do we store data at the state and how do we compute the proofs. So the current technology is Merkle-Patricia trice. Time. Where did we start? So, okay. Okay. So Merkle-Patricia trice. This builds on Merkle tree. Merkle-Patricia trice. Refinement of that. Merkle tree has a very simple concept. You must have already known about this thing. So the data resides in the leaves, and this is a binary Merkle tree. That means you take the hash of 2 leaves and compute this inner 0, 0, 0. Again, the same thing, and then you take the hash of these inner nodes, compute this one, hash of those. So this is a log height Merkle tree we have, right? This is the technology, and yeah, suppose we want to provide this data, that's leaf 0110 for a transaction. And in order to say that the block producer that this is the correct data, he needs to provide the proof. Note that the root is still stored by other nodes. The nodes, though they are not storing the data, they have the root, so that if there is a proof, they can verify with this root. So what do we need? So in order to verify, that leaf 0110 is the correct data provided by the block producer, the block producer also have to provide leaf 0111. Now, as a stateless node, I can combine these and compute the yellow box inner 011, and the block producer has to provide the red box, and then I can compute inner 01. The block producer has to provide the red box inner 00. I can compute inner 0 and compute root and match it with my root that I have already stored. So this is a Merkle proof, and yeah, inner 11. So you just need 4 the data, the leaf 010, and 4 red nodes. Okay. Imagine if you have 4 width Merkle tree, not a binary tree, then for the first step itself, you need to provide all the siblings. At every step, you need to provide all the siblings. So the more the width of the Merkle tree, the more the size of the proof it becomes. And currently, Ethereum uses hexary, that means width 16 Merkle-Patricia tree. Okay, so what this amounts to is, at the worst case calculation, using hexary Merkle trees with the current technology, each block would have to have 47 megabytes of extra data plus proof. And with binary Merkle tree, it can be brought down to 8 megabytes. But what we are going to see is the proposed technology Merkle trees, this can be limited to 1.5. So that's the great reduction that one can get with cryptographical innovation. So Merkle trees. So similar to Merkle tree, this is also a hierarchical tree structure with one difference. So in order to, so instead of hashes, these are commitments or all the intermediate nodes. And in order to open or in order to prove that the leaf 0110 is correct, you don't need the siblings of it. Okay, the way the commitments are used, you just need one more opening or a proof, let's say open 3, to prove that given inner 01, I can prove with open 3 that leaf 0110 is correct. Okay, so similarly, inner 01 is again in a vector commitment. So that means this also are hashed onto a root, but you need another open 2 to say that inner 01 is correct. So the only difference from Merkle Patricia trie, there it was a plain hash where you had to provide all the siblings to compute a new root or a new hash. But here you don't need to provide the siblings. Just you provide a separate opening, which is a cryptographical proof. I'm not going into details of the commitments and stuff. That is more in depth on cryptography, majorly using Peterson commitments and inner product arguments. These come from bulletproof technology. Okay. So another thing is these openings can be aggregated. These openings can be combined. So width for Merkle proof would still have, for this data leaf 0110, you just have to provide two elements in this tree as a proof. The planned thing for Ethereum is to have width 256 Merkle tries. So the difference between trie and tree is emphasized here, saying that from the root to the leaf, the path actually denotes the key, and the whole structure is represented as a key value structure. Yeah, so I'm not going into details again. So all the resources are here in terms of the cryptographical background on these. And mainly, conclusion is statelessness is critical for Ethereum to go forward. And witnesses or efficient witnesses are a way to make this a reality. And Merkle trees is the proposed solution. And they have around 30 times reduction in terms of witness sizes, which will enable the block size to be feasible to be propagated in the Ethereum network to have realistic finality times. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. I can go into details if you have any questions. Thank you. Yes.
All right. So there was a statement about sizes, and then the question was, how much is a block at the moment? I think I know it's sort of a rhetorical, but maybe I'm not. So what's the current block size at the moment? You know, so you were saying 45, 8,
Yeah.
1.5.
Oh, that's not relative to any
So
number. Yeah.
So for a normal block at the moment, how big is it?
I'm not sure, but it should be under 1 megabyte is
Yeah, I
fine.
thought it was a couple of 100K or 200.
Yeah.
Okay. 256, you know, it's a lovely, you know, number 2 or something, but why not 512, 1024, or 64?
Yeah.
How did they come up with 256?
Yeah, exactly. I think the whole thing comes between trade-off between a prover and a verifier. Here, prover is the block producer. He is doing the proving. I mean, he's constructing the witnesses, and the verifier is any node who is doing this verification. So there is technology where, let's say, using polynomial commitments, KZG or Carter commitments, one can come up with exactly one group element for this whole witness. The verification is easier, but the problem is the proving becomes computationally burdensome for the block producer. So this whole idea of having trees and still using polynomial commitments in the inner nodes is a trade-off between taking away some burden of computation from the block producer and increasing some verification times for the node. So 256 is let's say experimentally, empirically determined to be a good balance for this.
So I know you got just one last one. So we've talked about time, I mean space. and I know that drives latency, but how long is it going to take longer for nodes to calculate stuff or do stuff, or
Yeah,
is that acceptable?
it is acceptable. I think in Dankar's presentation, it was there. The verification happens to be like 2 field operations or something like that, major operations, which go into under a second. I think it's in microseconds.
Question, still second question. But yeah, so it looks like you're offloading some of the overhead to the computation part to the instant storage.
Yeah.
In some sense.
Yeah.
Because we're doing some additional bookkeeping.
Yes.
As part of the company. And you briefly mentioned that the block validators are lazy, and if you add too much overhead to them, they won't do a good job when they're validating. Okay. So therefore, my question is there an approach where we can add some kind of an expiry date or some additional information to the transaction itself that would help us to handle the situation better 5 to 10 years down the line? Because some of the people, they create transaction maybe once when they are buying ETH, for example, and they don't use it for the next 20 years, hoping that the value of the ETH will grow. So is there some benefit in adding additional fees to the transaction to help solve this?
Yeah, that's precisely the state expiry yellow box that we are talking about. I have detailed that in my talk. So that says, that looks at the state, and if certain parts of the state, let's say some contracts are lying there without being seen, without having seen any transactions for a while. So you can retire that from the state, and only certain nodes of the network maintain it, perhaps. So the idea of state expiry is that you have epochs or periods, let's say 1 year, and you maintain the state for the current year and the previous year, and everything you retire, everything else you retire, and you progressively go. So that way the state is bounded, because you're not the state here, the state that any node in the network is storing is only the state, the transactions that are touching the parts of the state which have happened in this year or the previous year. That is still bounded. There are various challenges for that approach. It's not determined to be feasible at all. Research is completely ongoing on full blast. But the Workl trace that the component that I described here is forward compatible with both approaches. The weak statelessness, where the states do not have any state, just the state root, and the block producers have the state, or the state expiry approach, which does not even burden the block producer or the miner to have the state, that can also be stateless. A miner can also be stateless. Stateless meaning that they have a bounded state. The Workl tries apply to both the paths. They are needed for both. Any more questions? Thank you. Actually,